The trial was supposed to be a formality. Everyone in the Galactic Tribunal expected the same outcome they always saw when a species violated the accord of peaceful coexistence: swift judgment, immediate sanctions, containment protocols activated within hours. But Ambassador Zeleth of the Varenthi Coalition was beginning to realize that nothing about humanity followed expected patterns. "You stand accused of violating 17 separate articles of the Galactic Accord," High Arbiter Quellen announced, his crystalline form refracting the chamber lights into rainbow patterns across the vast courtroom. "You have colonized 12 worlds designated as protected habitats. You have extracted resources from systems under preservation orders. You have made unauthorized contact with 7 pre-spaceflight civilizations. Most egregiously, you have refused to surrender the individuals responsible for these violations." Captain Torven Bridger stood at the center of the tribunal floor, flanked by 2 other humans, Dr. Mira Solon and Lieutenant Cale Winters. They wore simple uniforms marked with Earth's designation, and their expressions showed no fear whatsoever. That was the first warning sign, Zeleth thought. Every other species brought before the tribunal showed appropriate deference. Fear. Submission. These humans looked almost bored. "We acknowledge the violations," Torven said calmly. "We committed them deliberately. We will not surrender anyone for punishment, and we will not cease the activities you have designated as illegal." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Zeleth felt his own anxiety spike. Open defiance of the tribunal was unprecedented. Species that refused judgment were typically quarantined to their home systems and economically isolated until compliance was achieved. "You understand the consequences of your refusal?" Quellen asked. "Completely," Torven replied. "You will attempt to enforce sanctions. You will deploy military forces to blockade human space. You will threaten us with isolation and economic collapse. And then you will learn why those threats do not work on humanity." Bold words from a species with only 43 colonies, Zeleth found himself saying, unable to remain silent. As the Coalition's representative, he had studied humanity extensively. They were a young species, barely 2 centuries into spaceflight. Their technology was competent but unremarkable. Their military forces were modest. They should not be capable of defying the combined might of the tribunal. Torven turned to face Zeleth directly, and the ambassador felt an involuntary shudder run through his body. The human's eyes were predatory in a way that no civilized species should possess. "Ambassador Zeleth," Torven said, "your species has been part of the galactic community for 8,000 years. You have fought 3 wars in all that time, each one lasting less than a year before negotiated settlements were reached. You have never experienced total war. You have never faced extinction. You have never been forced to fight with absolutely everything you have or die trying. That is why you do not understand what you are threatening. Explain yourself," Quellen demanded. Mira stepped forward, her tablet displaying data that projected holographically above the tribunal floor. "Earth has experienced 5 mass extinction events in our planet's history. Each one killed over 70% of all life. Our species evolved during an ice age that should have rendered us extinct. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We endured natural disasters, famines, and environmental catastrophes that would have ended most civilizations. And we did all of this before we developed spaceflight. Death world evolution," Zeleth muttered. Earth was classified as Category 12 for environmental hostility, the same rating given to worlds where most tribunal species would die within hours of exposure. "Exactly," Mira agreed. "But that is not what makes us dangerous. What makes us dangerous is what we did to each other while surviving all of that." She pulled up new data. Historical records from Earth's past. Images of wars, conflicts, and violence on scales that made Zeleth's blood run cold. "In 10,000 years of recorded history, humanity has fought over 15,000 wars," Mira continued. "We have developed weapons capable of sterilizing our own planet multiple times over. We have created technologies specifically designed to kill other humans more efficiently. We have spent more resources on perfecting the art of warfare than any other civilization in the galaxy has spent on it across their entire existence. And we did this while simultaneously building art, music, philosophy, and science. We are a species that can create beauty and horror in equal measure. This does not frighten us, Quellan said, though his crystalline structure was pulsing with colors that indicated stress. Many species have violent pasts. You are not unique in that regard. No, Torven agreed. But we are unique in one critical aspect. We never stopped. Every other species in this chamber evolved past warfare. You developed peaceful societies and then maintained them for thousands of years. Humanity has been at peace for exactly 43 years, the shortest peacetime period of any spacefaring species on record. We are still evolutionarily adapted for conflict. We still train every generation in combat tactics. We still maintain weapons development programs. We still remember how to fight total wars. Not because we want to, but because we know that peace is temporary and violence is eternal. Kale spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the weight of military authority. You want to blockade human space? You should understand what that means. It means you are choosing to fight a species that has spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. It means you are threatening the survival of a civilization that has survived 5 extinction events and thousands of wars. It means you are giving us no choice but to respond with everything we have. You cannot win against the combined forces of the Tribunal, Zelith protested. We have 6,000 member species, millions of ships, technological advantages in dozens of fields. You have 43 colonies and a modest fleet. The mathematics are clear. Mathematics assume rational actors making optimal decisions, Mira said quietly. Humans do not fight rationally when survival is at stake. We fight with desperation, creativity, and absolute refusal to accept defeat. We fight dirty. We cheat. We violate every rule of warfare because rules only matter when both sides agree to follow them. You are threatening us with total economic collapse and military blockade. We are promising you total war with a species that knows how to fight it. Quellan pulsed with agitated colors. This is unacceptable. The Tribunal cannot allow defiance to go unpunished. We will deploy enforcement fleets immediately. Then you will learn, Torven said flatly. You will learn what happens when you give humanity no choice but to fight. You will learn why species who understood us tried to warn you. You will learn why the entire galaxy should live in fear of what we are when you force us to remember what we were. The Tribunal voted to deploy military forces within the hour. Zelith watched the humans leave the chamber with expressions that looked almost sad, as if they regretted what was about to happen but felt no doubt about the outcome. That was the second warning sign. 3 days later, the enforcement fleet arrived at the edge of human space, 400 ships representing 20 different species, all under Tribunal command. Commander Garveth of the Quellan Military Directorate led the operation with textbook precision. This is Commander Garveth of the Galactic Tribunal Enforcement Fleet. All human vessels are ordered to stand down and prepare for inspection. Your colonies will submit to Tribunal authority. Failure to comply will result in military action. The response came from Captain Torven Bridger, broadcasting from the human command ship Defiant. Commander Garveth, this is your final warning. Withdraw your forces immediately. We do not want this conflict, but we will not back down. You are threatening our survival. We will respond accordingly. Garveth signaled his tactical officer to deploy the fleet in standard enforcement formation, overwhelming force arranged to demonstrate power without immediately engaging in combat. It was the approach that had worked on every species that had ever defied Tribunal authority. It did not work on humans. The human fleet, only 60 ships against Garveth's 400, did not retreat. They did not form defensive positions. They attacked. Impossible! Garveth's tactical officer shouted as proximity alarms screamed warnings. They are outnumbered 7-1. They should be retreating or negotiating, not attacking. But attack they did. And Garveth quickly realized that human tactics bore no resemblance to civilized warfare. The human ships moved with reckless aggression, their pilots executing maneuvers that would kill most species through acceleration forces alone. They targeted not the heavily armored warships but the support vessels, the supply ships, the communications relays, the medical frigates. They deployed weapons that violated 3 separate weapons conventions. They hacked into Tribunal communication networks and broadcast false orders that threw the fleet into confusion. They are not fighting to win, Garveth realized in horror. They are fighting to make victory so costly that we will choose to withdraw rather than continue. Within 2 hours, the Tribunal fleet had lost 37 ships. The humans had lost 9. But more importantly, human tactics had destroyed the fleet's logistics infrastructure. Without supply ships, without medical facilities, without reliable communications, the massive fleet was crippled. All ships, withdraw to Rally Point Theta, Garveth ordered. Regroup and reassess. As the fleet retreated, a transmission came through from the Defiant. This was the gentle response, Torven said. This was us fighting with restraint because we still hope you will see reason. If you force us to escalate, you will see what total war looks like. You will see what happens when we stop holding back. Withdraw now, while you still can. The message terrified Garveth more than the battle had. That had been restraint? Back at Tribunal headquarters, Zeleth watched the battle reports with growing dread. The military had assured everyone that human defiance would be crushed within days. Instead, they had been forced to retreat after losing ships at a rate 7 times higher than the humans. How is this possible? Zeleth demanded during the Emergency Council session. They are outnumbered. Outgunned. They should not be able to inflict these casualties. They fight like they are already dead, reported Commander Garveth via remote connection. Every human ship engages as if survival is optional. They ram our vessels. They detonate their own reactors in proximity to our formations. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation to disable our ships. I have never seen anything like it in 3,000 years of military history. They are desperate, Quellan suggested. No, Garveth corrected. Desperation implies they believe they might lose. They fight with confidence. With certainty. As if they know something we do not about how this will end. Zeleth pulled up classified files on human history, information that had been available to the Tribunal, but largely ignored because humanity seemed peaceful. What he found made his blood freeze. They have done this before, he said quietly. Multiple times throughout their history. Small groups defeating larger forces through tactics that should not work. They call it asymmetric warfare. Vietnam. Afghanistan. Guerrilla conflicts. Resistance movements. Over and over, humans with inferior numbers and technology defeated superior forces through sheer refusal to surrender combined with tactics that violated all conventional military doctrine. He looked around at the assembled council members. We are not fighting a normal species. We are fighting a species that has perfected the art of winning unwinnable wars. Every conflict in their history has taught them new ways to fight impossible battles. And now we have given them an impossible battle. We have given them exactly the kind of war they excel at winning. Then we escalate, suggested Councillor Vrinth of the Hegemonic Union. We deploy overwhelming force. We blockade every human colony simultaneously. We cut off all trade, all communication, all resources. We starve them into submission. That will not work, Zeleth said with absolute certainty. That will only make them more dangerous. Humans under existential threat do not surrender. They innovate. They adapt. They become exponentially more dangerous the more desperate their situation becomes. Then what do you suggest? Quellan demanded. Negotiation, Zeleth replied. Before this escalates into a war that costs billions of lives. Before we force humanity to demonstrate capabilities that will terrify the entire galaxy. We negotiate a settlement that allows them to save face while bringing them into compliance with our regulations. They defied us openly. We cannot negotiate with defiance. Then we will learn to, Zeleth said flatly. Because the alternative is discovering exactly why humanity should be feared. And trust me, we do not want that knowledge. The Tribunal rejected Zelith's advice. They deployed a second fleet, 2,000 ships this time, with orders to blockade human space completely and enforce total economic isolation. The humans responded by abandoning defense entirely and launching raids. Small groups of human ships began appearing in Tribunal space, attacking supply convoys, destroying orbital facilities, and disappearing before response forces could engage. They struck seemingly random targets across hundreds of light years, forcing the Tribunal to disperse forces to protect everything simultaneously. They are not trying to win territory, Garvith reported after the third week of raids. They are trying to make governing the galaxy impossible. Every ship we send to protect a target is a ship we cannot use against human space. Every resource we expend on defense is a resource we cannot use on offense. They are forcing us to choose between protecting our own infrastructure and maintaining the blockade. How many humans are participating in these raids? Quellen asked. Estimates suggest less than 5,000 personnel across all raiding groups, Garvith replied. 5,000 humans are tying down forces that number in the millions. This is mathematically impossible. This violates every principle of strategic warfare. Unless the goal is not to win but to ensure we cannot win either, Zelith said. He had been studying human military philosophy and was beginning to understand their approach. They are not fighting to conquer us. They are fighting to make victory so costly that we lose even if we win. They will sacrifice everything to ensure that defeating them destroys our ability to govern the galaxy. Pyrrhic victory taken to its logical extreme. The raids continued for 2 months. Tribunal casualties mounted. Economic disruption spread. Public confidence in tribunal authority began to erode as citizens demanded to know why a species with 43 colonies could paralyze a government representing 6,000 civilizations. And then the humans escalated again. They released a virus. Not biological. Digital. A sophisticated piece of code that infiltrated tribunal communication networks and began broadcasting a message to every planet, every station, every ship in galactic space. The message was simple. The Tribunal claims to represent you. But they are losing a war against a species with 43 colonies. They cannot protect you from 43 human colonies. How will they protect you from real threats? The message included detailed analysis of every Tribunal military failure, every tactical mistake, every casualty. It painted a picture of institutional incompetence that was impossible to refute because it was entirely factual. They are not trying to defeat us militarily, Zelith realized in horror. They are trying to delegitimize us politically. They are showing the galaxy that we are weak, that we cannot enforce our own authority. They are destroying our credibility. This is information warfare, Mira Solon said via communication channel, apparently willing to explain their tactics. You tried to isolate us economically. We responded by isolating you politically. You cut off our resources. We cut off your authority. This is what humans do. We adapt to whatever battlefield you choose and find ways to win on that battlefield through methods you never considered. This is madness, Quellen said. You are destroying the galactic order that has maintained peace for thousands of years. You destroyed it when you tried to force us into compliance through threats, Torven replied. We gave you a chance to negotiate. You chose war. Now you are learning what war with humanity actually means. It means we will use every advantage, exploit every weakness, and violate every expectation until you either destroy us completely or accept that we cannot be defeated through conventional means. What do you want? Zelith demanded, finally understanding that this had to end through dialogue. What we have always wanted, Torven said. The freedom to govern ourselves. The right to expand our civilization without asking permission. The ability to make our own decisions about which rules we follow and which we reject. We are not asking to conquer anyone. We are not demanding submission from other species. We simply refuse to submit to you. The Accord requires compliance from all members, Quellen protested. Then we are not members, Mira said simply. We never asked to join your tribunal. We never agreed to your accord. You imposed your authority on us and expected obedience. We are telling you that humanity does not obey authority we did not consent to. Ever. Not in our history, not now, not in the future. You can destroy us, but you cannot rule us. And attempting to destroy us will cost you more than you can afford to pay. The tribunal convened an emergency session. The debate lasted 17 hours. But eventually, reality became unavoidable. They could not defeat humanity through military force, economic pressure, or political manipulation. The humans had demonstrated that any attempt to force their compliance would result in escalating conflict that would cost the tribunal more than it could sustain. The vote was close, but the outcome was inevitable. The tribunal agreed to recognize human independence. In exchange, humanity agreed to certain limitations on expansion and resource extraction. It was not the total surrender the tribunal had demanded, but it was enough to save face while ending the conflict. When the agreement was announced, Zeleth found himself standing before Torven Bridger in a neutral space station, finalizing the details. You knew this would happen, Zeleth said quietly. From the beginning, you knew we would back down rather than fight to the bitter end. Yes, Torven admitted. Because we studied you. We understood that the tribunal maintains peace through threat of force, but you have not actually fought a real war in thousands of years. You have forgotten what warfare costs. We have not. We were willing to pay any price for freedom. You were not willing to pay the price to take it from us. That asymmetry meant we would win eventually, no matter how many battles we lost. You terrify us, Zeleth said bluntly. Your tactics. Your willingness to sacrifice. Your absolute refusal to surrender. You are not like other species. You are dangerous in ways we have never encountered. We terrify ourselves, Torven replied. Do you know why we isolated ourselves for 43 years before joining Galactic society? We needed time to prove to ourselves that we could be peaceful. That we could control the violent impulses evolution gave us. We succeeded for 4 decades. And then you threatened our survival, and we became exactly what we hoped we had moved past. We became the humans our ancestors were. Warriors. Survivors. People who will do anything to ensure our species continues. He looked Zeleth directly in the eyes. That is why the galaxy should fear us. Not because we want war. Because we are terrifyingly effective at it when we have no choice. We tried to warn you. We told you explicitly what would happen if you forced this conflict. You did not believe us. Now you do. Now the entire galaxy knows what happens when you threaten humanity. Make sure that knowledge prevents future conflicts. Make sure everyone understands that we will always choose freedom over submission and survival over surrender. Make sure they know that peace with humanity is only possible if you respect our autonomy. And if someone does not respect that? Zeleth asked. If another species decides to test humanity in the future? Then they will learn the same lesson you did, Torven said quietly. And we will keep teaching that lesson as many times as necessary until the galaxy understands that humans cannot be controlled through force. We can be befriended. We can be negotiated with. We can even be trusted if you earn that trust. But we cannot be conquered. Not by overwhelming numbers. Not by superior technology. Not by economic pressure. Not by any method you can imagine. That is not arrogance. That is fact proven through 10,000 years of our own history and now through direct demonstration against your forces. Zeleth left the meeting with new understanding. Humanity was not evil. They were not conquerors. They were simply impossible to subjugate. And that made them unique in the galaxy. He returned to the tribunal and delivered his final report on the human conflict. But he added something at the end, a recommendation that would change galactic policy forever. We should establish a new classification for species like humanity, Zeleth said. Species that cannot be ruled, cannot be conquered, cannot be forced into compliance through any conventional means. We should designate them as autonomous civilizations and recognize that attempting to impose our authority on them will always result in unacceptable costs. Humanity has proven this. Future species may prove it as well. We need to adapt our approach before we face another conflict we cannot win. The recommendation was accepted. Humanity became the first species granted autonomous civilization status. Others would follow in the centuries to come, species whose evolutionary history or cultural development made them impossible to subjugate. But humanity remained the template. The species that taught the galaxy a lesson it had forgotten over thousands of years of peace: that some battles cannot be won through force alone. That some species will choose death over submission. That freedom, once tasted, cannot be taken away without paying a price no rational civilization would accept. Years later, Torven Bridger stood on Earth, watching the sun set over mountains that had witnessed humanity's entire evolutionary history. Beside him, Mira asked the question that had been bothering her since the conflict ended. Do you think they truly understand now? Do you think the galaxy will leave us alone? Some will, Torven replied. Others will test us again eventually. There will always be species that believe they are strong enough to succeed where the Tribunal failed. And when they come, we will teach the lesson again. Not because we want to. Because we have to. Will we ever be able to stop being warriors? Mira asked quietly. Maybe, Torven said. When the galaxy no longer needs the lesson. When every civilization understands that freedom cannot be taken by force. When peace is maintained through respect rather than fear. Until then, we carry the burden of being the species that everyone fears. The species that proves that conquest has limits. The species that demonstrates that some civilizations cannot be broken no matter how hard you try. He turned to face her. That is why the galaxy lives in fear of humanity. Not because we seek war. Because we win wars that everyone else would lose. Because we refuse to surrender even when surrender is the rational choice. Because we will sacrifice everything to remain free. That is our gift to the galaxy, the knowledge that tyranny has limits. That authority requires consent. That peace built on subjugation will always be fragile because somewhere, there will be humans willing to fight for freedom no matter the cost. Mira nodded slowly. Then we carry that burden. We remain the species everyone fears, so that everyone else can remain free. Exactly, Torven agreed. We are the price the galaxy pays for stability. We are the reminder that force has limits. We are the nightmare that keeps potential tyrants awake at night. And as long as we play that role, the galaxy will be safer for everyone. Even if they fear us for it. The sun set, casting Earth in darkness. But in that darkness, the lights of human civilization glowed bright, a testament to a species that had survived 5 extinction events, 10,000 wars, and now, their first conflict with galactic authority. A species that would survive whatever came next. Because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They fought when necessary and forgave when possible. And they never, ever surrendered. That was why the galaxy feared them. And that was why the galaxy needed them. If you enjoyed this story, like the video and subscribe for more. Thank you.